Right, so game two, at least I hope this is game two, but it's on Royal Blood again. What is happening? Why is it always Royal Blood? Please don't play the same map twice in a match. That's the whole kind of point of a map pool. I think carefully about which maps to put in the pool. I try and include like maps that are good for different races. The maps are reasonably balanced by and large, but they're not perfectly balanced ever. As a general rule in any season, there's some maps that maybe favour one race over another a little bit. And I also try and include some maps that are sort of well suited to shorter games and some maps that are well suited to longer macro games. So please do use all of the maps in the map pool for each round. Anyway, this is in slow motion or something. Let's get going. So Gateway coming down on BeanKing's side of the map, and over here for StanR, we've got the pretty standard looking opener. Looks like that was absolutely straight up just depot racks gas, and workers not just being rallied. Okay, don't know what happened there. I think he just accidentally double clicked maybe, and pulled all of the workers to send down to build this. So looking like nothing weird is happening so far. This little Marine, he's going to park out the front, and I like that. Rather than up here, having the Marine somewhere over here means that if a worker shows up to try and scout, you do have the ability to focus it down before it gets into your base and gets any information at all. If that doesn't happen until you're at the top of the ramp, then you know a thing when you get to the top of the ramp. You get to see some of the buildings, you get sight up that ramp. So if you're able to deny that, that's all to the good. This worker from Stanley, however, gets in and sees absolutely everything. So this build, if I saw this early in the game, I would assume it's a DT drop. We've got a Twilight, we've got a Robo, and you don't normally build both. I mean, don't get me wrong, you'll have both eventually, but to have both early in the game is unusual. So Expo coming down for BeanKing, that's actually a pretty fast third, arguably a very fast third by EMS Scraft League standards. So we'll see if he's able to spend the minerals that he gains from that in a useful way. Hopefully the short answer to that is yes. So again, for BeanKing, Zealot out the front is good, but it was a little late because obviously the SCV has already been in and had a good look around. Bunch of Marines coming out, and Stanley really, as we saw in the last game, does need to get faster with those upgrades, because there's no upgrades at all for these Marines. And as a general rule, upgrades like this that come from the forge and upgrades that come from your engineering bay, from your evolution chamber, those come with. Generally, those are not upgrades that you need to worry about in the early stages of the game. It's more important to have more units. Those are mid-game upgrades. Sometimes, if you're planning a really well thought out timing attack, maybe you drop like double Evo and you push with 1-1 roaches or something like that, and you've timed your attack out so that your 1-1 is way earlier than it should be, so you get a load of value. But that's a very specific example. In general, don't worry about those upgrades until later in the game. Once you're up saturated on 3 bases and you're in the mid-range, mid-game zone, not this sort of time, 6-7 minutes deep, then by all means start thinking about those upgrades. But in the first 5 minutes, you just don't, if you're not cannon rushing, you don't need a forge, you don't need an engineering bay, you don't need an evo chamber, you just don't. What you need is units. But with all of that said, the other types of upgrade are important. So combat shield, massively important. Stim, massively important. It just makes such a big difference to how effective your Marines are. And bear in mind, medevacs just literally double or triple the value that you get from your Marines. So Marines are brilliant, and well upgraded Marines are what can win you games. Marines that have no upgrades at all are so squishy. These are 45. They die easily. They don't really stand much of a chance against anything at the 9-minute mark, because by 9 minutes you expected it to be things like Colossus doing splash damage, you know, and without combat shield, splash damage is just going to devastate these. And with that said, in the last game, what we saw was, where did that scan go? Over here, I think. In the last game, what we saw was an awful lot of siege tanks, and a particularly unfortunate engagement from BeanKing. So he may well be hurting from that. Now this is, it's just a weird army. This is a box cover army, is what they call these, where it's the sort of army that you see, you know, on the artwork on the cover of the game. Not one that anybody ever makes, but because it's disparate. You know, we've got like spellcasters in here, like the sentries, but no charge lots. So sentries drop in force fields or grit so that your charge lots can get on top of things and that type of stuff. So generally with Colossus, Zealot Colossus, that sort of stuff, the Zealots get on top to hold the opponent's army back from shooting the Colossus, and the Colossus gun them down. Force fields go very well with that combination. Focus your opponent's army into chokes and things like that. But sort of two carriers, a random Tempest, a Mothership, Templar, Colossus, it's a weird army. Let's see what happens in this engage though, because Storms and Colossus can be absolutely brutal. The siege tanks are not sieged up. That force field, I'm not sure it's really helping. The Burl Disruptor just walks to its death. Still no Storms. Would like to see some Storms, but the Mothership with the cloaking field is going to be devastating, because now these units cannot see anything apart from the Mothership, and that is really unfortunate. It's a shame that Colossus stepped out from the cloaking field. So these tanks simply can't see anything to shoot it, and are going to get mopped up this time. So Mothership, the absolute hero there. Stanley, of course, does have an orbital, and that orbital does have full energy, Stanley. So all you needed to do was drop a scan, and your siege tanks would have obliterated everything on the ground. I'm not sure if you had enough to fight the air army, but you certainly would have done better if you could see the units that you were trying to kill than otherwise. But yeah, some Storms would have been awesome, and Disruptor Balls would have been awesome, as it was going to see. So there is one siege tank sieged up at the back. Again, Stanley can't actually see the ground stuff. Now that is the problem he's got here. Now if this is coming into range, I don't know why he is seeing it now. Is there a turret somewhere? I don't really know. Anyway, maybe he wasn't going to be out magic. Anyway, this is just going to mop everything up, and it is a shame because Stanley did have the ability to scan that and reveal everything, and it might then have been a slightly fairer fight. Now, with all of that said, look at the difference in upgrades. That is telling, and you know, while I've ranted on about not needing upgrades in the early game, come the 13-minute mark, we've left early game behind us. But these are the big upgrades. Range for the Colossus, Storm, Charge for the Zealots, so important. Those are, you know, all great things, all very, very good things. What is that one? Is that like weird recall thing for Tempests or something? Could be. I don't know, I can't quite remember. Anyway, GG.